everyone, and welcome to another session of the WAIMM webinar series. I'm going to be your host for today. My name is Lawrence Omari-Mensah, President of WAIMM. Mine closure has been a problem, especially in our part of the world. Unlike other places like the USA, Germany, Canada, Australia, etc., where mining companies leave behind monumental projects. In Ghana, the conspicuously missing is a mine closure framework. And this is what this webinar today seeks to achieve. The webinar by Dr. Koduah Dapaah, the EHS manager from Kinross Gold Chirano mine, is going to provide us knowledge on the proper framework needed for Ghana. Dr. Koduah Dapaah is also assisting the WAIMM to set up a closure framework for Ghana. Look, I think I wouldn't want to take any more of your time. I will get you to take us right there. Please, you can go ahead with the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence, and good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, guten Tag to everyone. Like Mr. President indicated, the purpose of this presentation is to set the tone for discussion in terms of our policy framework regarding mine closure in Ghana and, of course, perhaps beyond Ghana. If you look at the initial points that he raised, the mine closure issues have been dotted in various areas in terms of within our regulations, in terms of within our practices, and within the confines of the law regarding mining in Ghana. However, it's about time that after 100 years, over 100 years of mining, we'll put all those dotted points together to have a significant framework which could be emulated by our colleagues and neighboring countries who are in the mining jurisdiction now. So that is to set the tone for discussion on that, and we have every right to critique it, to make it better. At the end of the day, Ghana or the mining industry should be the winner. And the purpose, another reason is that whilst we acting locally, we're looking beyond to attend the global challenges regards to mine closure. So the topic, like I said, is enhancing. I don't want to take it that there's nothing regards to mine closure framework in Ghana. We want to make it better. So enhancing the mine closure framework in Ghana for promotion of sustainable development in the mining communities. And we want to use this presentation to set the tone for policy review, insight for mine closure policy review. And the idea is not as operator alone, at the end of the day, it becomes an investment option for the communities. The overview, so before that, it will be about two components of it. The first aspect is to look at the technical framework, or in terms of encompassing the social aspect and the environmental aspect. We'll look at the economic aspect of it, and then put them together. And beyond that, we'll look at the option of designing a report framework too. In terms of getting the insight of it, we need to report, to put in the form of reporting framework too, which other jurisdiction, they call it technical guidelines. So the overview, mine closure has become one of the most challenging issues facing mining houses, mining communities, or of course, mining countries around the world. The challenges with closure include safety and environmental as well as social risk, and then also a threat of economic and social collapse within the community. I think you and I know that we know that when a mine collapses, then we get the indication that ghost towns are being created, We want to move away from that. And of course, the government, in terms of government environmental liabilities, remediation costs and loss of revenue to the local economy, and of course to the national economy too. Generally, severe reduction in income at best, or huge cost in terms of social and environmental mitigation at worst. The challenges with mine closure worldwide, what I've seen with all regards to other areas, not Ghana alone, is that even the concepts, the definitions and issues surrounding mine closures are complex and varying. There are cases where reclamation and rehabilitation are termed or deemed to be the same, but they are different. And if you don't get a concept, how do you match it with the technical aspect, and in terms of also assigning the cost to it to get a better framework for mine closure? Mine closures have and will continue to have a major impact across the broad spectrum of concerns of all the groups that are directly and indirectly impacted by the closure. Issue of the types of mine closure itself is also diverse and complex, and it takes many forms. However, the accommodation of all these concerns to the extent possible would result that maybe termed as enhanced mine closure will be the way to go. If you look at the evolution of issues or events, a century ago, closure was when mines ran out of ore, production ceases, and then we close everything, we abandon it. And in cases where you see that the mine the next day is nowhere to be found. In recent past and even today, that practice is sometimes still followed. Characteristics and trends: the general lack of concern for comprehensive mine closure prior to the 1960s. That was a characteristic. It was followed by increasing concern for environmental issues related to mine closure, where we have the acid mine drainage, reclamation and rehabilitation challenges in the 70s. We moved in the 80s and in the 90s, where sustainable development was also came up with regards to Brundtland approach to sustainable development, where definition was made in regards to the environmental, economic, and the social development. Yet, we are not having the sustainable mine closures. So what is the missing link? And beyond that, that came the introduction of sustainable development in the year 2000, at the turn of the century. Within the 21st century, there has been a component of it where there is a need for us to look at the technological advancement and innovation as a key driver to mine closure. What is going on can be exemplified in Ayamfre mine experience. We also Ayamfre mine, which was closed, and that will be reopened. Bonte mine experience. One day we all got up and there was no mine. And then in Basetia, a few people know of Basetia mine. I was involved there. Amansi experience, one of the showpiece of mine closures, perhaps in Africa, if not in West Africa. At the end of the day, what happened to it? Decommissioning and other experiences known and unknown in and around Ghana. What's our current system or framework? The basic concepts of closure is challenging. Legal framework in Ghana. Academic methodology also gave out a point towards closure, reclamation and security agreement condition signed between the operators, mining companies, and the EPA. It's also a component of closure. ICMM guideline on mine closure, and the Standard Management Code ISO 21795 draft standard. Key inclusions, which included water, social transition, and climate change, are all considerations at closure. But to have a better framework, a practical one, and I would say a homegrown approach is what is lacking. The industry best practices, BBNE did an excellent rehabilitation, followed by Goldfields and others. And these are all issues that were peculiar to the mine side without a particular national guideline. So what's our policy? What are our standards? And what are our benchmarks? The Constitution of Ghana gave directive principle of the state contained in the chapter 6 of it, that the state shall take appropriate appropriate measures needed to protect and safeguard the national environment for posterity, and shall seek cooperation with other states and bodies for purposes of protecting the wider international environment for mankind. If you come to LI 2182, which spells out a bit of closure-related issue, and that is spelled out in 78 to 81, as well as 273 to 286. It looks at the discontinuation of the dam general provisions for mine site rehabilitation, mine closure plan for internal closing or abandonment, submission of plans, closure of pit and underground explosive process plan, hazardous plans, and other ancillary. Heap tailing storage facilities. These are areas that a bit of closure was touched, but not in the framework where you can lay your hands on one-stop shop and everything is there. If you look at Environmental Assessment Regulation 1999, 1650, LI 1652, it also touches a bit of mine closure. Regulation 14 talks about the funding for reclamation. And the 23, Regulation 23 talks about reclamation as an aspect regarding submission of the reclamation plan. Then we have Reclamation Security Agreement signed between operators on one side and EP on the other. It talks about Reclamation Security Agreement, cash deposit, bankers guarantee, and other financial instrument that should be approved by the EPA. Like I said, Akobin Section 5 talks about best practices of environmental management, which touches a bit of rehabilitation and closure. International regulation, ICMI and ICMM, also a bit of closure. So this is the component, the supporting arrangement under the various companies looking at environmental policies towards closure, compliance, progressive rehabilitations leading to stable landforms, and closure phases, which is spelled out in the Reclamation Security Agreement, and post-mining land use options, and then of course reporting aspect of it. The current practices in terms of environmental financial assurance, we have the EPA and the Minerals Commission who are jointly responsible for mine closure. EPA is responsible for the implementation and the management of the financial surety. And the surety instrument, mostly bank guarantee, cash aspect, and letters of credit. The scope of surety is not clearly defined, and it becomes much more to do with what the proponent submit to the regulator on agreement that is taken. And then the coverage is for 2 years, that's for review, and that is the framework. If you have acid mine drainage, post-closure is 7-year monitoring. If you don't have acid mine drainage, the post-closure monitoring is for 3 years. The types of closure, these are some of the fundamentals that affects the environmental financial assurance. Many a times you have life of asset, which sits with the operator for his full plan man life and based on owner-operator rehabilitation. That's where the assessment, the financial assessment is done. There's another aspect of it where it's about asset retirement obligation. This is based on the mine's owner's relevant financial reporting standard and based on any legal obligation. So it's, if you look at it, perhaps what AngloGold Ashanti will be doing will be different from Kinross and will be different from Goldfields. But most important one will be the regulators' estimates or the financial assurance. These are required by law to be included in the financial assurance against sudden and unplanned closure. It's used by the regulator to establish the financial assurance or coverage in the form of bond, bank guarantee, and financial mechanism as required by the regulation. And it's dependent on the regulatory requirement within that jurisdiction. Sudden and planned closure must also be component of the financial coverage, which is an estimate of the cost to close the mine if you are to close Chirano tomorrow. These are the strengths and the weaknesses within our system. Within the strength, at least there has been an enhanced awareness in the mine closure planning in Ghana now. There is conscious effort and desire of mining houses and allies to do the right thing. And the signing or in the process of signing the reclamation security agreement with EPA is there, I can say with all confidence that about 99% of the mining companies in Ghana, the existing ones, have signed that security agreement already. Appointment and availability of competent personnel to handle mine out land rehabilitation and some sort of closure planning. People who have learned on the job has learned by doing and enrich their capacity in handling it. However, the weaknesses in the system looks at the lack or inadequacy of exemplary or functional leadership in mine closure and post-closure sustainability within the industry. Amasia would have been a perfect fit for that, but it's no more. Determination of the bond side is also key. And virtually there's no monumental or sustainable project left to the benefit of the community like the president indicated it earlier on. There's also lack or inadequacy of stakeholders engagement. There is inadequacy or lack or total lack of policy direction in terms of sustainable development agenda in Ghana. There is inadequacy or lack of national or regional strategic framework in mine closure planning in Ghana. There is no document giving direction to that. There's also no functional procedural management in mine closure, post-closure, relinquishment, walk-away, and certification. If I ask you now, today, that we want to close a mine A, what are the protocols in place to follow in terms of walking away, relinquishment, and tenement given to the community? There is no established protocol on that. And we need to have a sustainability success story to guide all of us. Opportunities available is promotion of sustainable development at the national level, promotion of community sustainability. That's one of the focus of sustainability or sustainable development that is failing in Ghana. If you look at Australia, the national focus is on environment. If you look at Germany, under the sustainable development is technical and technological innovation and advancement. Looking at our setting in Ghana, I think our focus should be on community sustainability after closure. So how do we promote community sustainability is key. Promotion of social alliances, there's opportunity to enhance trust in mining, and also promotion of business of tomorrow. And it will be win-win for all. Otherwise, the threats that we'll have will be conflict of interest regarding preferred land use options. I think that was also demonstrated in Mansia, where one community will say, we want this land to be used for farming, other will say fish pond, and this one will say this. There was no guideline, and if the mine went for one direction, at the end of the day, the dam, the pit was turned from fish pond into another illegal mining and sand winning. And tailings dam became a sand winning area. Why didn't we foresee it and put in it as a sand winning opportunity or business outfit for the community to thrive on? Then I'm saying destroying rehabilitated site is also a challenge. We want to define the future. We want to describe our future based on concepts and ideas, and the definition, the right one. To me, environment is beyond the physical aspect of it. The land, water, and air. Environment goes beyond that to include the social aspect, the human being within the environment. Well, we play a key role. We are the drivers in terms of impact on the environment, in terms of development, fixing remediation of the environment. So why should we be left out as component of the environment? So that's the first thing we have to look at in terms of carving out our policy guideline for mine closure. Decommissioning. What is decommissioning to you and to me? It's a breakup, dismantling, a removal of whatever it is. At the end of the day, when you remove it, there is what we call secondary process generated waste that needs to be disposed appropriately. And decommissioning should ensure safety and security. So if you are putting cost estimate for decommissioning, you must look at for what is the cost for breakup, dismantling, removal, and the disposal of the secondary generated waste. It must be costed. If you don't cost it, you miss that link. And security and safety is also key. Reclamation, what is reclamation to you? There's difference between reclamation and rehabilitation. And when you study German language, they try to define or describe the process leading to reclamation and rehabilitation. And that gives a clear indication of the differences. So reclamation is what earthworks. It involves controlling, backfilling or sealing, flattening and stabilization. And then you spread your topsoil. It's load, you haul, you dump, and you spread the topsoil, or you add humus or oxide material in the mix according to whichever regulation you use. And the revegetation is transfer of selected healthy seedling from the nursery onto the field for planting. There's a cost aspect of it that must be looked at. So when we're starting from the beginning to end to bring the closure cost. So this is what drives the closure cost. And then care maintenance. What is care maintenance? The weed control, erosion control, and the pest control, mulching and the seedling replacement, the growth monitoring, which currently I think most of us have stopped doing the growth monitoring. We need to bring it back. And then rehabilitation comprises the reclamation, topsoiling, revegetation, care maintenance, and stabilization of the landform. And then you move to the phase towards restoration. That is where there is introduction of biodiversity. And biodiversity is the combination and diversity of life forms, return of diverse species of fauna and the flora. And then you are approaching restoration. Restoration of the area that has been mined out is when rehabilitation has been successful, biodiversity assessment has been done, and there is self-sustaining and functional as well as viable ecosystem thriving. That is when you can say you are closing or you've done a successful closure. And everything, these parameters must be costed and the estimate done to give you an appropriate closure cost. Of course, the stakeholders engagement is also key. And under which, and key component of mine closure is resource management and sustainability principles. And what is resource management? Prolonging useful life of material through reuse or recycling is resource management. That's a bit different from resource conservation. And when we say we have mine closure, when you have the financial assurance, restoration, monitoring, dialogue, and reporting as well as disclosure. Relinquishment, you walk away, and there's promotion of sustainable development, which is geared towards enhancing the social alliances. That is when you can have a successful mine closure. So sustainable development, like I said, is quadruple bottom approach, not a triple bottom approach. It's sustaining improved technical, social, and economic, as well as environmental aspects and capacities that involve sustainable development. And then closure certification is key. Currently, there is no regularized closure certification or permitting on that. So that's an area we also need to look at. Them. I've just spelled out what goes within the closure in terms of what involves with that and various types of closure or kinds of closure, planned closure, unplanned closure, and the temporary one, and the phases of closure. At the beginning, by the regulation, if you look at 2182, you have to submit your closure plan. That is conceptual one or initial closure plan. In the course of your operation, once you start the rehabilitation, then you have an interim closure plan. That must be submitted every 2 years. And when you are getting to your final closure, I think it's 2 years or 18 months to closure, you submit your final closure plan. And that must be done. These are the phases of closure planning. And one good thing within our setup that we have is a completion criteria within the Reclamation Security Agreement. That is existing. That is very good. those colleagues who set it up, they've done a great job. We have the primary completion and the secondary and tertiary, as well as land use and final completion criteria spelled out. So in the future is bright, but there is a fundamental divide between the interests of mining companies and the interests of the communities where mining takes place. The increasing expectation for promotion of sustainable development on both sides is of interest to the operator as well as the community members. The desires for reduced human safety and health risk is of interest to both parties, as well as even the regulator. Converting environmental liabilities into viable closure assets is key, and that's the purpose of this our discussion. And completion for land with increasing value of natural environment as an enhanced investment option is also key. If you look at various social studies, land is linked up to poverty eradication. So land is key. And these should form the basis to present our principles and ideas and guidelines for regional and national strategic policy framework, capacity enhancement, institutional reorientation that can yield a sustainable mix of social, economic, and environmental superior outcomes with certainty, and above all should be driven by technological innovations and advancement. Key objectives of the ideal closure plan we're looking at is to prevent and minimize adverse long-term socioeconomic and environmental impacts. So we need to create self-sustaining and viable ecosystem, create a sustainable and viable employment and social outcomes, enhance long-term resource stewardship, transfer and enhance technological capacities, technological innovations and advancement, and promote community sustainability. We will fail in our duty of care if we don't promote community sustainability in and around the mining environment, and also promote entrepreneurship. Of course, we cannot do away with a promotion of civil liberties. We need to describe the future within the scope of socioeconomic framework too. The people's way of life, the people's culture must all be part of our closure. That's the social aspect of mine closure. We look at the community, its cohesion, stability, sustainability, character, services, and facilities, the political system, local environment, their health and well-being. And then, of course, their fears and aspirations. Sometimes it may be rare or just a perception. However, those must be incorporated in the social aspect of mine closure to make it complete. And the outcome is to integrate sustainability. For us to achieve that, to integrate sustainability into our corporate strategy, to understand the aspirations and expectations of the people after mining operations in the area, to identify feasible, sustainable alternative livelihood, not with all respect to ourselves, where there is this grass cutter, railing, and this. How sustainable are those projects after mining? That will not fly if we want to move and support community sustainability. To also identify possible existence of businesses and marketing relationship of what will be left down. Planning, we should provide a planning tool for managing social and economic impact, including social investment and mine closures, as well as life after mine closure. That's all towards community sustainability. We should turn sustainability into a competitive advantage and value creation tool. We should build a more effective business case for both short and long-term sustainability initiatives. And when we expect mine rehabilitation towards closure, these consideration neutralization agent for agroforestry should attenuate, there should be attenuation potential for pollution in the soil if there is, and then the medium for growth, and also as a potential for a resource, and also a process of flora generation and fauna return. Like I said, closure should be based on sustainability principles. the four quadruple approach, and also resource management. The resource management is you need to prolong the useful life of any material that is left there. That is when we practice resource management. One of the critical social aspects that is driving all these agenda that we're calling for enhanced closure is the fact that there's a critical shortage of approved space for disposal of waste. You know, if you look at the science of it, any activity we embark on human development, whatever we win out will be just be 10%. 90% of it go into waste, and the waste must be looked at for appropriate disposal. And this is leading to a conflict between the mining environment, where the support square proposed by Skinner, what they call the scrap of land that supply all the resources to be used throughout the life, and that must be fulfill the same purposes for others to follow. That space must also absorb the waste that is left. It's like my desk on which I sit now is what I will be left with, and that's where everything will be done. And you understand that there is under serious attack in the sense that population growth, activity, and human life, quality of life improvement is all taking place within the same space of land. We are not increasing the land size, but we are increasing the elements of people on the land. Support square shrinking from 3,000 meters square in the late 1800s to 160 in the 20th century. And it's estimated that at the end of the 21st century, you and I, if we were to be alive, will have only 100 meters square for us, for all where we build our houses, recreational area, and waste disposal sites. For my good old professor will say, for miners are seen as harvesters of the earth's fruit. To reap those fruit, the earth must be plowed up. After harvesting, the plowed fields can be reclaimed and restored to pristine natural beauty with only temporary impacts to the earth. But while we miners act locally, we must think globally. So we need to redefine and implement sustainable development agenda. And the action plan towards that is technological innovation and advancement, social stability and advancement, economic stability and growth potential, and environmental sustainability with emphasis on community sustainability. So in defining that, turning liabilities into assets, we need to have a policy direction, a geared towards sites being converted to local agroforestry or for commercial non-food crop farming. A redevelopment for the same land that has been mined out, operation for project that is now catching up in Ghana, greenhousing projects. The use of operational waste as a resource for remining and for alternative product in manufacture. Why do we have to close our tailings dam, cover it, and do rehabilitation? And then we provide we provide blasting licenses for quarries to generate sand and rocks for whatever means. If you look at our tailings dam, most of us, our sand, the material is like sand. It's mechanical formation of sand. Why can't we have appropriate measures in place and with policy guidelines to turn these millions of tons of sand in our tailings dam for sand winning, for concrete products, and for brick making at the end of the life of mine to extend the community sustainability? Why do we close our waste rocks down? Why can't we turn into another as a resource? So this is where the conversation is on. Redevelopment of sites that may have also tourism site. Throughout Ghana, apart in the mining, we've mined over 100 years, there is no mining museum. Why can't we set up a mining museum? My first experience in underground training was an old mine that was to be used by my university for training. We don't have, why can't we have a similar one for UMAT? And now that we have Western North region, we will also be interested to have a university here. So why can't we turn, at the end of the Chirano or the BNI mines into a museum or to a center of excellence for training? development of business structures and operation in a way that capitalizes on characteristics of redundant infrastructure, thereby conveying a competitive advantage for the new business. I think I've talked about in terms of the financial assurances. I'm not going to, all that we need to do is to determine the determination of the bond size must be based on risk and must be by technical plan, not based on what Chirano or Goldfields or Newmont or whoever thinks is right. So there must be a proper protocols in place in determining the bond size. So the bond size amount will be determined on the basis of the risk, which I've said already. And the various protocols and surety instruments are quite okay as we have now. Processes to incorporate in terms of policy change, the process aspect of it, we will still continue to have EPA and the Minerals Commission leading that. But if you look at other jurisdictions, you have Bureau of Mines, because I'm bringing this up within the sense that there's sometimes a conflicting interest between EPA and the Minerals Commission, with all respect in terms of permitting, arrangement, and requirement. Why can't we have a joint team, whether we can call the MINCOM EPA, to issue one and approve one on that? And for processes towards the reform, we also need to look at preservation of the mining and geological records. I ask myself, when a man's here closed down, can we go in for their mining and geological records? Is this something that is easily traceable, you can lay your hands on to review it? So these are the areas you must look at. Adequate capacity among also the regulatory personnel is key. The ongoing research and personal remediation strategies must continue, and then ensuring that the dialogue exists between the private and public bodies to improve their closure policy and regulation. When Amancia was going down, was towards closure, it was supposed to be a university, Anglican university. At one point, it was supposed to turn into another military camp. So you see that there was no well cut out policy guideline for the post-mining land use. Why can't we have it now? So that when we are walking away, then the next actor is coming in place. There shouldn't be any gap. And based on this, we require capacity building for institutional actors as well as among the industrial actors. And it should be multidisciplinary teamwork under the coordination of geoenvironmental side of it. People must be competent and members of professional bodies like WAIMM. If you are not a member, why should we allow you to put your signature on some of these here? As a proposer, integrity of financial security is key. And these are all geared towards closure to be cost-effective, fulfilling acceptable sustainability requirements. The rationale behind it is that there is a search for bridging the gap on the fundamental divide, which I said earlier on, between the interests of the mining companies and the interests of the communities. This search, however, should in no way be seen as impediments to dynamic market economy driven by technology, entrepreneurship, sustainability, and to individual liberties. Society's effort to bridge the gap must be organized around strategic goals that simultaneously represent the desired objectives of promotion of sustainable development for both sides of the divide, mining houses and the host communities. Instead of playing politics around it, that becomes a tangle between socialism and capitalism, or idealism and realism. These improvements in all facets of our development must be based on techniques of sustainable development framework, with pragmatic objectives and principles, with periodic reassessment, dialogue, and disclosure, reflecting on the challenges of the time, such as global financial crisis, COVID-19 pandemic, corporate future, poverty eradication. Poverty is known to be the widest pollution on earth. All geared towards promotion of sustainable development with emphasis on community sustainability. Let us all redefine criteria for sustainable mine closure completion by improving on the existing one with the challenges of the time. Thus, the redefined sustainable mine closure plan should form a model or a standard for the national or regional strategic mine closure framework, underpinned by strategic direction of the national agenda on sustainable development, especially within the host mining communities in Ghana and perhaps in West Africa, if not for Africa as a whole. Accommodation of all these concerns to the extent possible that could yield a sustainable mix of social, economic, environmental, and technological innovations with superior outcomes with certainty, measured by value addition, otherwise poverty eradication, is supposed to form the basis to present principles, ideas, guidelines for strategic policy framework, planning and implementations, and reviews for enhanced mine closure plan for promotion of sustainable development. These are some of the elements you need for closure. Your topsoil stockpile, you must have topsoil stockpile or balance of it. These are examples of closure that we've done in Ghana in various areas. And let's not forget that when you talk about mine closure, your underground mine is also included. So this is a typical example of underground model that you look at plugging all the accesses, closing, water management, and others. Those form part of the cost, define the cost of closure. So now we come to, you've done the closure policy. How do you report on the closure? So this is a technical guideline that I'm proposing. And this has been tested, reviewed by colleagues, it's a teamwork. So on the technical guideline, how do you report closure plan has been a challenge worldwide, but we need to have out a guideline, technical guideline on that. So in terms of that, the content of the closure plan reporting, there will be introduction, name and address, location and extent of the lease. These are requirements in the mining regulation. Is there when you are doing all those aspects? You are sending your EMP, environmental management plan, or if you are sending your mine operating plan, MOP, these are some of the simple guidelines which we can still continue. Your location, your address, reasons for closure, statutory obligations, closure plan preparation, and then the mine description, talk about your geology, reserves, mining method, and the beneficiation. This is based on the fact that a mine never closes. One gets tired, you walk away, and another interested actor comes to take your place. So a mine will never close. So the geology, the ore you leave today at a gold price of say 1,000 may be very interesting to me, my son or my grandchildren, when the gold price is 5,000 at the rate of 1 gram or 0.5. So you need to define that. You review your implementation for mine plan, your closure plan. The key elements is the protection of the environment and the public and health safety. Reduce the element, establish conditions under which should be consistent with the predetermined land use objectives. Establish the effective physical, chemical, biological stability of the disturbed land, and what are you doing towards promotion of sustainability. So the introduction and the project description will follow land tenure system. We have surface right. We don't own the land. In South Africa, the mines own the land. And I think in US, the mine can buy the land. In Ghana, we only have surface right by law. The land has owner. So objectives of closure should be part of the report, your baseline environmental studies, your legal and other obligations, your stakeholder involvement, your risk assessment. Your closure risk assessment is also key and should be part of the report. The type of closure you having, was it a planned closure? You need to come out there. And the closure cost, your provisions and your securities that you use. And the report should also contain your closure action plan towards progressive rehabilitation, decommissioning, remediation, geotechnical assessment, landform establishment, revegetation, aesthetics of the geodiversity, heritage, health and safety, post-closure maintenance and monitoring, social closure, and then social capital transfer technology, documentation and reporting of your records. the mine outlands, water quality, water management, waste management, topsoil management, disposal and machinery, safety and security, disaster management, risk management, care and maintenance, economic replication, compensations, and then all these things, your continued engagement, your plan on that. And then time scheduling, abandonment cost, financial assurance, which you must attach a copy to the report. And then plan sessions, geological sessions must also be included. Economic value addition and transfer of assets as to who owns what must also be included. Your surrounding and walking away should be part of that. I just went through to give details of what is involved with the continuing engagement. I'm not going to dwell much on that. Maybe during the question time, it will come and then we'll address it. Otherwise, that brings to end of my conversation with you and available for questions and answers. So as by my training, we end up by saying a typical German style, we say danke and Glück auf. Thank you so much.